There's a wacky new wealth tax proposal, this time coming out of Canada, and this time it's targeting property owners, everyday homeowners whose homes are worth too much. I'm going to share the idea with you and why, even if you don't live in Canada, this could affect you. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. And a couple years ago, just for fun, because I'm always researching new property markets, we've got an entire team who does that now, I was looking at property in Canada. I had been to Canada, last time was about 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And, you know, it's interesting. I was in Montreal on that occasion. I said, I wonder what a house in Montreal costs. And so I started looking at properties. And to be honest, it wasn't as expensive as I thought it was. You think these properties in Canada are all extremely expensive. There were actually some nice apartments. But you know what caught me off guard was the extremely high school tax and the property taxes. And I've talked here in a separate episode about what it costs me to maintain multiple properties. You could add them up, stack them up, and square it, and it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be as much as what you might pay in a country like Canada. The taxes are through the roof. And now, according to the Financial Post in Canada, they are putting together a proposal that could make it even worse. This proposal is coming at the same time that groups in California want to make it to where you have to seek approval to sell your property. In Canada, what they're looking for is essentially a wealth tax. CMHC-funded group proposed a surtax on homes over $1 million to address housing inequality. Generation squeeze, ostensibly younger buyers whose incomes have not kept up due to the mismanagement countries like Canada have done in running their economies, running their currencies. Generation squeeze argues that the surtax could raise between $4.5 and $5.83 billion that could go towards other housing projects. Here's what the Financial Post says. A think tank funded in part by the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation and the National Housing Strategy is proposing that homes valued at more than $1 million Canadian be subjected to an annual deferrable surtax as part of a plan to tackle housing inequality. In a report released beginning of this year on Wednesday, the research organization Generation Squeeze, so it's an actual organization, argues that such a surtax would hit 9% of homes, 1 out of every 11 homes across the country, and could raise between $4.5 and $5.83 billion to go towards other housing projects. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind with this is always, I don't understand how taking more of people's money, potentially, by the way, people who aren't even that wealthy. They just happen to have a home that through the value of inflation and assets increasing in value has gone up in value. And now we all know that if you have any asset worth anything these days, you are part of the evil rich and you should be punished with more kinds of taxes and have your rights taken away and everything else these people are proposing. But what also stands out to me is, so who cares how much money they raise, quite frankly, if it's not a fair thing to do. But this would be an annual tax, so you're adding to the property tax, adding to the school tax, adding tax upon tax upon tax. But where's this money going to be put? Isn't the problem in many of these cities, you look at places like San Francisco, the issue is the government never approves any housing projects. They don't have the proper zoning. They don't do anything. And this is the challenge with these so-called democratic societies like the United States, where it's so democratic, it takes decades in some cases to get things done. It takes 16 years to build a tunnel in Boston, for example. And are they really going to take this money and apply it to actually build housing? Or is it just going to go into some pot where a bunch of bureaucrats are going to use it for whatever while they sit around and debate, how many angels can dance at the head of a pin, about building, here or there? Is it actually going to go to build something, or is it just going to be set aside in a pot, a slush fund for the politicians? That's the question that I would ask. The proposed surtax rates would range from 0.2% on homes valued between $1 to $1.5 million, and up to 1% on homes valued at over $2 million. Aren't they so generous? The tax would only apply to the value in excess of the $1 million threshold. Most Canadians, according to the report, would not have to pay anything. Of course, this kind of tyranny of the majority argument that they always come out with. As long as you're one of the 91% who wouldn't be affected, what do you care about the rest of those people? It'll never come down, as you see massive inflation going on right now, the worst in decades. The values will never affect you. Don't worry. Your house will never go up in value as more people pour in to buy property and housing prices go up and the value of the dollars goes down. Don't worry. It'll never affect you if you're one of the 91%. Just punish those evil 9% of people who bought a house that went up in value. How dare they? The tax will only apply to 9% of households living in the most valuable principal residences in the country. I wouldn't call 9% the most valuable principal residences, but it shows you the mindset of the people who want to tax your wealth. This is essentially a wealth tax. You own a property. It's perhaps liquid, but it's not entirely liquid. And perhaps it's less liquid if people don't want to buy properties that have surtaxes on them, because these surtaxes never really stay the same. Go to look at a country like Greece, the surtaxes always go up. It becomes untenable at some point to where people don't even want to inherit properties. They say, please take it. I don't want it. I'm signing my rights away. Please don't give me this property. I can't handle the taxes. But I wouldn't call 9% of these residences the most valuable. Many of these places, again, just got pumped up by asset values, including 13% of Ontario households. Everyone is happy to pick on Ontario, right? And 21% of British Columbia households, it adds. Deferral in this case would mean that the tax would not need to be paid until the home is sold or inherited. Oh, aren't they so generous? Here's your huge bill for the last 10 years. The report added that this design detail would be flexible to avoid imposing risks on those with limited incomes or wealth beyond their homes. And again, when I think about this, they always try and make it sound like, oh, it's so reasonable. I remember many, many years ago, I had an old business partner, and his parents lived in Long Island. And I became friends with his father, and I remember I visited one time, and he said that even with the senior deferral, reduction, if you're a senior citizen, you get a big reduction in property taxes in this area. You could smell the ocean breeze in Long Island. Their taxes were something like $15,000, something like that, with the reduction. I said, what was it without the reduction? I forget what it was, but it was a lot more. And I've worked with people who have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 property tax bills. No matter how much you try and reduce it, you are putting a burden on extra people. And this just goes to show, again, these wealth tax folks, they want to include as many people as possible. Don't believe it only affects the top. I saw one article recently. 0.0001%, the article talked about. It's never going to stay there. This one starts out with 9%, 13%, 21% in British Columbia. Of course, they'll tell you about the 9%. Forget the people in British Columbia. Who cares that 1 in 5 of them will be subject to this? Don't worry, you've got to pay it later. Maybe you were using that money to retire. Many people in the United States, their home equity for the longest time has been their biggest savings account. Not necessarily a good idea, but that's the people that have looked at it. Oh, housing prices are going up. I'll use my equity. Well, what happens when the government says, hey, we help with this equity. It's an untapped pool. Let's support housing for people who we've not allowed more housing to be built. We've not allowed more, projects to be turned into housing or high rises. We haven't changed anything to allow housing to be less expensive on our end. So let's just tax people, and perhaps we won't even fix the issues to allow more housing to be built, but we'll pretend we're going to do something, all while racking up 5.83 billion Canadian dollars per year. The proposal, which was part of a package of measures including increasing affordable purpose-built supply and policies to keep rental units affordable, which basically means if you're a landlord, you got to take it in the shorts. You can't raise rents. Doesn't matter that your expenses go up. Doesn't matter that repairs need to be made. None of it matters. You still have to do all those things, by the way. We can't have people living in shanties. But you can't raise the rents. You've got to pay more taxes. It's all going to be bad. If you're a landlord, for example. And if you're a property owner, it can be bad too. And by the way, probably fewer people who want to buy your property. The proposal was part of that. Canada's low interest rates and a boom in demand for single-family housing in the suburbs helped push the average home price in Canada to an all-time high of $720,850 in November 2021. So if the starting point here is $1 million, and the average house all across Canada, I'm presuming including in the middle of nowhere as well, is $721,000, that means a lot more people are going to be affected as inflation continues. And that's the goal. Never believe these, we're only coming after the 1%. We're only coming after you if you have $20 million, $50 million. I like these much more honest proposals when they come out in the UK and say, hey, it's a one-time, wink, wink, wealth tax. Starting at £500,000, I think they wanted to do it. I think that's a lot more honest than people who are like, oh yeah, Elizabeth Warren, unless you're a billionaire. It's never going to raise the kind of money they want. And once you start, they can just start bringing it down, because the argument is always, it only affects 9%. Notice how just in the last year, you weren't seeing a year ago, it only affects 9%. When have you ever heard a politician, in my entire life of following politics, I've never seen a politician, don't worry, it only affects the top 9%. It was always 0.5% or 1%, maybe 2%. It was always, listen, it's just, if you're in the 98% of people who, don't worry. 9%, 21%. This to me shows the motivation of people who want to raise your taxes. Look at some of the numbers out of California recently. If you make as little as $49,000, they want to jack up your taxes. Maybe if you live in Modesto, California, $49,000 is fine. You ain't living high on the hog in Santa Monica or anywhere else in Southern or Northern California on 49 grand, and yet they think they should raise your taxes. They want to put, just if you have a barely above average home, they want to apply wealth tax to you. And it's only going to get worse because there are so many pet causes now. And you know what I'll say? I haven't said this before. There are a lot fewer pet causes in the Serbias, in the Malaysias, even in the Singapores or the South Koreas of the world. Even, many Latin American countries. There are fewer pet causes than there are in these US, Canada, Australia, these kinds of legacy brand countries. There are innumerable pet causes now where they believe, hey, we need to raise your taxes for this because you owe us. And as long as they can come up with an endless list of reasons why you owe them, they'll come up with an endless list of taxes to go along with it. And now you're seeing how they're widening the field the way we always told you they would. More people will be affected. It really will be the haves and the have-nots, except the haves will be people who have absolutely anything, and the have-nots will be everyone else that's been left behind in the wreckage of bad government policies. You'll be paying the bill for them. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.